Welcome to another episode of the Ambitious Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Sabine, the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you for listening and thank you for helping me be on purpose. So I'm so glad to be back here today again. And typically, I am well-versed on the things that I talk about here because I know them like the back of my hand. However, I wanted to talk about something that I really don't know much about, but I think it's so important that we start having these conversations. And it's this new sort of digital world that we've been hearing about. So my guest today actually brought it up. As some of you may know, I do record my intros after I interview my guests. So I do that because it's good to sort of like have some context about like what we've sort of discussed. And there's usually a lot of gems that come out. But yeah, we talked a little bit about this digital world towards the end of the conversation. And we're talking about, NFTs, cryptocurrency, metaverse, Web 3.0, all these things that you're probably like, what? I don't have the brain capacity to really sit down and sort of digest it. But what my PSA for you today is that you really need to go and educate yourself. Like we all need to be knee deep in this thing. If you could stop everything that you're doing and just do that, I would even tell you to do that. But I know it's not realistic, right? But I wanted to have this conversation because like I've been hearing a lot about different areas of our current world that are being developed, and that it's really in the infancy stage and we could actually be sort of first to the party, right? Or early to the party because there's a lot of corporate money that's being placed in these different spaces and not for a lot, right? It's something that you and I could actually afford and actually take part in and be part of, the next wave of where everything is going, right? And so we don't want to be stuck in sort of where we are just because we didn't take the time out because our feelings are like, oh, it's too much, I don't have the time, I can't, dedicate to it, it's too over my head. It's not too over your head. With anything, if you take the time and you sit there and you actually put yourself in the right rooms, have these conversations, read, you will sort of get it. And I'm telling you, I need to do the same thing because I'm really, in the baby stages with you on what's actually going on. And so my guest today, we were talking about a little bit about real estate. And so within that space, there's these whole virtual worlds that are being created where you can actually partake in owning land, and what does everybody, even though real estate now, physical real estate is still a viable investment, right? I'm not telling you not to invest in that, but physical real estate has only scaled about 18% year over year. I'm saying only like that's a little bit. That's great, right? However, in these virtual worlds, like people are seeing returns of hundreds of multiples, right? Hundreds of multiples. So where can you do that? Imagine being first to building America. You know what I mean? Imagine being first to modern civilization. Like these people are millionaires and billionaires. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a legacy so that tomorrow where our children are going to be or where the generations that come after us are going to be, we want them to be set, right, for their journey. And this is going to be their reality, whether you like it or not. This is going to be their reality. It's not a hoax. It's not a thing that's, sort of imaginary. I always think of like the Matrix, the Jetsons, things like that. Well, guess what? The things that you put your mind to sort of tend to manifest. So collectively, we've manifested these things that are coming into fruition. And it's time. It really could be a true equal opportunity situation where we truly have the opportunity to enter this decentralized space where no one is in charge, essentially, right? You have the power within your own hands to sort of be able to control your future, your destiny, and all of the red tape is sort of taken away. And I get it. I haven't actually told you anything in this conversation, and I'm kind of rambling, but it's something that I hope you see sort of the spark and the passion and you're like, you know what, I need to go learn about this. I need to know what NFTs are and how they actually work. I need to understand crypto and the blockchain and how everything is sort of like moving together and interchangeable and how this is going to be the future. Because trust me, you probably have enough to get involved. You probably, have enough assets or information and knowledge to actually get involved and get yourself in this space. Because to be honest, it's really all staring us in the face, right? It's all around us. You've heard of it. It's all around it. It's looking right at us, and we cannot just like walk by just because we feel like it's too overwhelming to learn something new. And so I say that to say, really go out there, educate yourself, look these things up. Hopefully, I'll be able to have conversations with people more in this space so that we can continue to grow this conversation because it is part of legacy. Because, like I said, tomorrow, this is exactly where we're going to be. It's going to be exactly what we're going to be doing. And so now that I've said nothing, we're going to get right into the interview with my guest who could actually give you some concrete gems on investing and talking about real estate and all the ways that you can build some wealth even right here, right now. Hi, Storm. How are you?
Hey, how are you? How's everything going? It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Yes, same. It's such a pleasure to have you. I'm so honored that you take the time to chat with me and hang out for a bit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so for those of you guys who don't know Mr. Storm, Storm Leroy, right? he
Yes,
is he is an investor, he's an entrepreneur, he is savvy in so many different areas and has such a passion for the things that he talks about. So I really thought it was really on point to kind of have a conversation because we're aligned in so many areas. So welcome, Storm, again.
Appreciate you so much. Definitely. Definitely.
So where did the name Storm come from?
Storm actually came from my family, my mom's
Oh, really?
actually. I was born on Friday the 13th on a Saturday.
Mm. Wait, Friday the
Um,
13th on a Saturday?
excuse me. Friday the 13th. But the
Okay.
Saturday is going to come into play as I get further along and real quick sum up the story. I was
Okay.
born Friday the 13th, right? But on this, during the time my mother carried me, there was like nothing. She literally thought I was not alive in her stomach. I
Oh
was
my
dead
goodness.
still. She's like, oh, when you were born, everything happened. It was the storm, it was this, the snow, and consistently every 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
every 10 there would be a storm on my birthday.
Wow.
It was consistent until when I hit 40. That's when it didn't, it happened on a Saturday. So that's where the Saturday came in. But it was consistent 10, 20, 30, 40. It was on a Saturday.
Wow.
So that's
Interesting.
yeah.
I thought you were
So
gonna say I came up with it because, that's
no,
interesting.
no,
You've always
no.
been
It
that.
actually was there, and
Mm.
and it was good use. And I also use it as a performing name. I used to be an artist.
Mm.
I was a hip hop artist. I was signed.
Wait a minute. I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't know. A lot of friends in the industry. I toured videos and all that other good stuff.
Oh
And
my
it was
God.
traveled the world. It was really one of my first times of seeing what the other side of the world was like and being bigger
Mm.
than one of my block.
So
And once Mhm.
sorry, no, go ahead.
No, you go because you know me. I start talking, that's the problem. You witness when you say give a minute and it turns into five. So I like the fact that please jump in.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So how did you go from that life to then working sort of or going back into, I guess, regular life that we would say,
Yeah, going into the work field.
going into the
Um,
workforce?
well, that was really interesting. I started doing music in '85. Man, y'all really gonna be like, how old is it? '85, right?
It doesn't
So
matter. You
then
look good. That's all that matters.
very much. So in '85, and then during the time of me doing that and touring, I wanted to do other things in music, like what was
Mhm.
happening here. I was interested in combining more of rock and hip hop,
Mhm.
live band, but that wasn't the mood here. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing, but it was
Right.
becoming popular overseas. So people was like, yo, go overseas. Denmark love you. Like the kind of music we were doing was different.
Wow.
And I stuck by my guns, what I wanted to do. And the States just wasn't with it. And I
Mhm.
said, you know what? I don't want to go across the globe
Right.
because back then you always want to be a success here. I always call it the Terrence Trent D'Arby syndrome, right?
Mm.
Like people who remember him, he tried to make it here in the States, but he left and became a huge success out of the States.
Wow.
But he always wanted to come back and be big. And when he came back, he still wasn't known. So he had to work and grind to be who he was. And once I just said, you know what? I'm going to take this job.
Mm.
Working, I got into some hacking mischief and they kind of found out about it. And they said, you
Mhm.
know what? You got offered the job, take it. And
Okay.
that's kind of the story of how I got into working to get out of trouble from computer hacking.
That is interesting. And I get what you're saying because like America's like the mecca, right? For like entertainment and things like that. And if it's like if you make it here, then you're international. So you didn't want it the other way around. So
Yeah, I didn't.
that's interesting. So tell me, how did you become an investor from then? Was it that your mind was opened up and you were like, listen, I know there's more to the world. This 9 to 5 is not where I'm going to stay. Like, how did you get into investing?
Okay. Once I was doing that whirl of hacking and I was making good money,
Mm-hmm.
remember back then hacking wasn't a crime. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
what is known now. So
Right.
I was making money. I said, Dad, what am I going to do with this money? I also knew that if you buy anything over $10,000, that would trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Look into you. So we
Mm-hmm.
were like, yo, what we gonna do? My boys, they were buying cars for $9,000. And the car's worth $20,000, but
Mm-hmm.
they would have to pay the money on site. The whole thing. I said, no, I'm open to be a barbershop.
Right.
So I
Oh.
opened up a barbershop
Mm-hmm.
and I started figuring out ways how to, what they call now, washing money,
Mm-hmm.
cleaning the barbershop. And it opened my eyes to having a business, how important it was, doing the taxes, how the money
Mm-hmm.
comes through. And I got me an accountant who understood that, okay, you got a barbershop and I know you're doing something else,
Right.
but we're straightening this money out. And I was like, oh, that's dope. So that's how my brain got involved with the business, but by renting. How I got
Mm-hmm.
into real estate, that was a passion also falling in that same line. But when I went to look at properties, I took someone with me and I kind of, shared the story
Mm-hmm.
that didn't see the benefits of real estate. Because in the 90s in New York, it was all crack. Or around the
Mm-hmm.
world, it was 90s
Right.
crack era. Brooklyn was really bad. So I went to look at properties and they were like, yo, man, it's nothing but crack over here. Like, why would you want to buy it? But I saw a future
Mm-hmm.
actually owning and not renting, which I was doing at the barbershop. So they deterred me from buying. So then I went and bought my actual properties and said, I'm not going to let no one tell me nothing different.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the real estate. And man, it's a whole nother long story, but I'll let you ask me questions. But that's how I got it.
And what made you feel so passionate about real estate? Like, where did that come from? You just knew it was going to be a thing, like despite what everybody was saying and everybody's sentiment. Like, why did you know it was going to work?
Why did I know it was going to work? I
Mm.
knew it was a good investment because I watched the owner of the barbershop that I was written
Mm.
from continuously make money in that same era. Like she had these barbershops,
Mm.
laundromats, things that people still had to do regardless.
Mm.
They still had to get haircuts. They still had to do their laundry. Like drugs was out in the street, but she's consistently going to the bank. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yo, she doing good. She's got a vehicle. I'm paying her rent. Like this rent,
Right.
but I just didn't know how big of a on a scale it would be. But once I knew I had to stop living the lifestyle of what I was doing before making that
Mhm.
kind of money, I said, I can invest that money and now I can continuously make money by no longer jeopardizing my freedom. And
Right.
that's how I knew for me, real estate was it. On this scale, my brain was already business.
Okay.
Being in the music, having bad contracts and all that stuff, ownership.
Right. So you're like, I'm not going to sit here and repeat and repeat what happened in the past. Wow. So what sort of mindset what I mean is, what role did mindset sort of play in this? Do you feel like you had to have a particular wherewithal because nobody you knew was actually doing this? No one in your friendship circle was actually doing it.
Yeah, for me, the mindset, which I always talk about in anything I do, is mindset. Like
Mhm.
I automatically knew I had a choice to make. My choice was continuously cash flow or to continuously jeopardize my freedom.
Mhm.
So understanding that part of it was the easy part, right? But I'm not that guy. I'm not, I never was sold drugs. So I'm only
Right.
pretending to be that way. I wasn't out there in the street. That wasn't me.
Mhm.
But I could sit behind a computer and do some things that's magical. That
Right.
was me. But I know that, like I said, that was coming to a head. So the mindset was I could keep doing this, or I can do what somebody else is doing, and they're consistently making cash flow in this, and people need a place to live.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of getting the right properties that's going to make that money. And I said that was the closest for me to get
Right.
into that world. Like I didn't know any other type of like stocks, nothing like that. That
Mhm.
wasn't the conversation. The mindset was investing. And I knew that me getting into the world of working, I didn't want to work. I
Right.
did end up there for a good amount of years, but I knew I wanted to take that salary with the money I was making and do something else because I wanted to exit, but I
Mhm.
didn't know how to exit out of the job until I actually got in the job. Like I
I
never
got you.
had a full-time job until I started working for the telephone company. And once I got in, I was like, oh, hell no. I have to figure out a strategy to
Mhm.
get out of here. And I start pumping that money and coming up with ideas. And I started brownstone.
Wow. So you bought your first brownstone in Brooklyn, right?
Yep.
Wow. And so did you find that when you were investing in real estate, when you bought that first brownstone, did you find that it was easy and you were just like, I'm just going to keep doing this? Or was there any challenges involved?
It was easy back then. It was so
Mm,
easy. If you had a heartbeat, you could get a loan.
wow.
When I bought my first brownstone, I bought that property for like 350,000, which sounds like nothing now, right?
Yeah.
Brownstone's worth $2 million, 1 point something. But think about it. I mentioned what was going on.
Hmm.
People wanted out. Properties had some value, but people just wasn't comfortable with what the situation that was going on, right?
Hmm.
So now that all this stuff was happening, um, and I had the job. It
Hmm.
made it easy for me to get the mortgage. So once I got that mortgage, I got that. I had a friend that was a realtor. He basically told me how the game works. He's like, listen, you get this. Now you're going to get a construction loan, right? You're
Mm,
going to take that construction loan. And now with that construction, you're going to use half of that to go get the next brownstone. And we're going
wow.
to put half of the money here to redo this place. Once the tenants, you get them out, you do some updates. I was like, oh, word? He's like, yeah, no, that's what we do. That's how they do it. So I got
Wow.
the
Back
construction loan.
then.
They got another one.
Mhm.
It was the Wild West. It was like,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. Banks giving out money. Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Wow. Because now you couldn't even do that. You couldn't take your construction money and buy something else with it. Well, I guess there are ways.
There are ways, and we know people who are on that big side who do it like that. Yes.
Right, but it's definitely challenging. That's interesting
Yep.
because I worked in the mortgage industry prior to 2008. So I worked at mortgage companies, I worked for mortgage banks, and I worked on the processing side and supporting loan officers. And I know back then it was just like a cash cow. Like, anybody could get a loan for anything and pre-approvals were just slinging left and right.
Oh,
So,
yes. Yes. They was throwing them away.
right.
Easy.
And
Easy.
and so after you purchased that first property, you just kept going. You just kept buying more properties in Brooklyn.
Well, I bought the second one, right?
Hmm.
But the thing was, after I got that first property, and I was gutting this place out because the pipes and everything. You saw the water stains, and I was like, yo, I just want to do this place right. My boy's like,
Hmm.
look, trust me. You want to make sure you do this right because you're gonna have an issue. So we gutted.
Hmm.
It was a 3-story brownstone. So I got all 3 stories down to the basement, plumbing, electric, everything.
Wow.
So now we're in the basement. I'm in the basement looking all the way up to the roof, three
Right.
stories up. And I'm like amazed. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is this and that. And I'm looking up and I said, I never want to do this again. I
Mm.
never want to do this kind of work again in my life because I had a job. I had a job at the time, and now
Yeah.
I just created another bigger job for myself. And I'm like, I'm not in this to work. Like, remember,
Right.
I came from a situation where I was on the road, I was an artist, I was making money. I was doing my other thing, making money. And now it's like, here, take a hammer and a chisel and go make money. It's like, yo, that I didn't
Backwards.
want to do that. I
Right.
knew there was money out there to make. So once I did that and I had the other property, I stopped buying properties altogether. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I need to figure out a strategy on how to be able to do this the right way where I can continuously make money and not have to worry about doing the work part. Right. So that's when I stopped working. So now if you want to jump in, you got to jump in. Because I start telling the whole story, you'll be like, yo, give me some tea. You're going to go.
Ahead, go ahead.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Keep
No,
going?
I was gonna say, like, with that frame of mind, a lot of people do feel like that. Like they don't want to invest into real estate because they don't want to have to do the work. They don't want to manage people. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to collect rent. So like I understand where you're coming from. And that I feel like was one of my weaknesses because my family had a 3-family house in Queens in Rosedale, and it had a walk-in basement, so you could have rented every single floor. And my parents sold it. This is like right after I got out of law school. So technically I could have bought the house. But I had that frame of mind, like, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to take care of it. So every day now I'm like, damn, I should have kept that property. But so what did you do next? You stopped investing in real estate because you're like, I'm not doing this. And then how did you get back into real estate at some point?
Well, to touch on definitely what you said, which led me into this space, my key thing, which I always tell people, is think like a CEO, not like a landlord.
Okay.
That mindset, that adjustment for me changed my life, changed my money. It changed my trajectory was gone. Once I realized that once I had that brownstone, I had tenants, I had to collect the rent, I had to do that. I was like, this is whack. This is crazy. So I didn't want to do that. And now I understood there has to be a better way. So I just started looking beyond what I knew, the landlords around me. I started looking at people who had all these properties and how did they do it? How were they multi-millionaires? How were they able to have 100, 200, units, doors, whatever, and rocking it? It was, they're not doing no work. They're delegating duties.
Right.
They're not doing so why do I have to be that guy? So now my mind shift was, these guys are CEOs. So I said, okay, now I want to start buying properties. Once my head clicked like that, I said, cool. I wanted to get back in real estate. This was like 5 years later after I started working and all this. So now I go, how can I do this? Not in New York.
Right.
Property's costing too much now. Well, excuse me, not 5 years after the first property. I mean, 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
20, right. So I got settled into working. Right. So now my whole brain goes, bro, let's get back in real estate. So now real estate here is $800,000, $1 million. And I'm like, yo, this cash flow don't work now.
Right.
The cash flow towards the rent, towards the $1 million mortgage, $5,000. So I'm like, okay, if rent is $2,000, that don't work. Even if you got a 2-unit, that's $4,000. You got 3 units. Still, that's $6,000. Now we're not talking taxes and insurance. We're not talking all this other stuff. So let me look out of state. So now I start looking out of state, doing research about out of state, got into Bigger Pockets, which changed my life. And I always say biggerpockets.com, 100%.
Wow.
Credible investors need to learn about it. 2 million investors hang out there and talk about ideas. So I'm talking about them about out of state, and they sharing knowledge. I found me an incredible mentor. And I will say it again. Just like in the dictionary, the word mentor comes before money. Get yourself a mentor if you're trying to make it to the word money all day. Once I got me a mentor, I had several mentors that I never met because they lived in other parts of the country. Now, once they start breaking down to me how they work, how they make it, how they do this, I'm like, yo, that's like a CEO. So now I found my first property with the help of my mentor, did that, got that property, and now I'm working and I'm going, damn, money's coming in. Wow. I'm not doing anything. Yeah, this really works. This system works. Bought me another. And then my mentor said to me, look, you're killing the game. But once you learn how to partner, you're going to be out of here.
Wow.
It's like, I'm good over here. I'm making money. Right. I'm going to, so
let me interject for a minute. So I heard you say being in the room with like-minded people, even if you're not physically in the room, and connecting
Yep.
with mentorship. And did it matter whether they looked like you or did not look like you? Was that a hang up, or did you feel like you can get mentorship wherever you can get mentorship?
100% it didn't matter.
Okay.
And let me tell you why it didn't matter.
Hmm.
Because, like you said, I didn't know if they look like me. I can assume by the voice.
Right.
Later on, I find out,
Hmm.
But the key is this: what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get hung up for the fact that somebody who doesn't look like you is trying to give you knowledge to change your trajectory, your legacy, your next 4 or 5 generations? Are you caught up with that? Or are you upset the fact that you can't find someone that looks like you and give you that knowledge? You should be looking at that reason and saying, why can't I find somebody that look like me to give me this knowledge? And now let me change that so people who are trying to do the things that I'm doing can have someone that looks like me. And that's what I'm doing.
Wow.
I'm taking all of my knowledge, everything I've learned. So now people can go, which I hear all the time. Storm, I never heard nobody say they bought over 30 properties and never see them. I never heard nobody talk about legacy wealth like you. I never heard this. I never. And these are people who've been in the game for a long time.
Right.
Or people who just get in the game a short amount of time. You know why? Because I'm changing that. But the scary part about that is when I do have these interviews and I talk with people and I tell them my background, properties, and how I do it. And I go, look, I don't see them. I've made this much money and you can do the same. I don't touch them. First thing they do is look at me like a side hustle.
Right.
They're like, what are you talking about? How did you do that? You don't see him. I said, so I say, oh, well, Grant Cardone, he says it.
Yeah.
You think he goes sees all of these 250 doors, stuffs around the country that he does it? I'm doing it on a smaller scale. But when he says it, oh, it's believable. But when I say it, it's like, yo, I don't believe him. I had somebody, and I do a show I started 2 days ago called Eye of the Storm, right?
Oh, awesome.
So I do it on Instagram. Yeah, trying to spread more knowledge. So I do it on Instagram and I do it in Clubhouse. So this lady, she gets on, she goes, let me tell you, I've invested in real estate. I take my HELOC and my IRA and I invest and I want to get into it. And the first time I heard you on that show, I said, oh my God, this man's incredible. But one thing I said, I'm in the country. Y'all New York fast talking. Y'all really sound like, and you make it too good to be true. It sounds like this. So I said, listen, you look like me.
Right.
All you have to do is check my resume. You'll see for yourself. I said, but what if Grant Cardone said it? I said, what if that guy that used to be the president, he owned all this real estate.
Right.
Do we think that he's around looking at this? It's okay when you hear it from them. It's acceptable. Why can't come from a black boy from Brooklyn, New York? Bed-Stuy.
Right.
Why?
Why do we do that? And sometimes it's that people don't see that they're capable of doing these things, or if they see you do it, then that means they could also do it. And it's like, well, why haven't I done it? Yeah. So that's amazing. It's amazing how like people are receiving what you're saying, because that was sort of also my impact. I was like, wow, this guy's different. And the way that he's passionate about what he's saying, it's like it really sort of comes through. So you're welcome. So you said that that you had a mentor, your mentor told you to start partnering with people. And so how did that change things for you?
It changed because he showed me the bigger picture, right? I was buying one property and understanding the tax game and all this other things, which is something we need to learn also, is the tax game. Why I talk a lot about, my LLC structures and all that stuff. But the biggest thing is, why would I take $20,000 or $30,000 to buy one house? If I could find a like-minded partner, take that $30,000 and now we bought 2 houses. Now, instead of me having one and he has one, we have 2. And what does that do? That's greater equity growth. The tax write-offs are different. Now you start building. Now you're creating a bigger circle. Your net is starting to grow because now you say, you know what? I got another person. So now instead of you being able to get $100,000 house, you and your partner could get a 200. You get another third person, think like, y'all gonna get a 300, a big unit, from 1 unit to 2 to 4 to 10 to 15. That right there is a syndication deal. I tell people, you see these millionaires, you see these big deals go up with a 16 unit, 1.6 million, $2 million. You think that's one person who took his $2 million?
Right.
That's a investor who said, no, I'm gonna take 200,000 and I'm gonna go do 5 deals at $1 million. I'm gonna give you 200,000. I'm gonna go find another $1 million deal. I'm gonna give them 200,000. I'm gonna go find another 5 of those deals. And now guess what they're doing with the taxes? Guess what their portfolio look like with 5 properties instead of them buying that one deal?
Right.
And that changed. I grew. I literally was growing like that.
In such a short period of time. You said 5 years ago you had stopped investing in real estate. Now you're a multimillionaire doing it. That's like amazing. And so there was no fear in any of this, like in pushing yourself to do things, buy things that you're not seeing, and then going into bigger deals and bigger deals. Because sometimes, I mean, a lot of times people don't grow because they get stuck in fear and don't go past what they could see or what they're comfortable with. So how did you do that?
2 things stop people.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched them both in the same sentence, right? But the problem is, it's not necessarily the one.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one is the fear. The other thing that stops people when you have conversations with them, they don't have enough money. Run out of money. And that's where it comes. If you know you got $100,000 or you got 50,000 trying to start, don't take that 50 to get 1. Don't take that 100 and buy 2. Find yourself a like-minded person. Take that $100,000, get you a smaller unit. If you could get you $100,000 property, 20% down at $20,000, and you got 100, why would you take the 100 and just buy you a $300,000 property? Say to yourself, I'm gonna get me a smaller unit, keep the rest of this money, get me 2 or 3 more smaller units with this 100, or try to find a partner. Let me break this down in ways of numbers, right? For me, myself, I wouldn't take $100,000 and get me a 6-unit building that I have to pay water, lights, and heat. Right? I wouldn't do that. You know why? Because as a CEO, we want to minimize spending our costs.
Right.
So what I would do is I would get me either a 4-unit that don't have to pay light, heat, and water. The tenant pays all that, and all I have to pay is mortgage, taxes, and insurance. So I'd rather get me 2 4-units or 8 duplexes instead of 1 multi-unit where I can't dictate using the water, where I can't dictate how much heat I have to pay for them, where I'm paying the hallway electricity, because I've had that. I've had units where the water ends up, the toilet flap goes on 2 of the units, and then the water bill comes in at $3,000 for the quarter.
Wow.
You can't get that money back. But guess what? If the tenants pay their own water, their own light, their own heating, you have to think differently. It looks good on paper. When people say, oh, man, yeah, I got this big unit, I got this and that. And I say, yeah, those are cool. But when I tell you I have 4 units and under, about 20 something of those units, and I'm making over $20,000, and the only thing I have to, that's netting consistently. So now, and I tell you with those, all I got to do is make sure my mortgage is paid.
Right.
I don't get a call about paying the water, paying their heat, nothing. But now you got this 116 unit, and now you going, all right, the water bill, what is it going to be? Because that changes.
It does change.
Now they moving other people in. What is that heat going to be? What is that electric going to be? That's fine. Because I do have situations that I am moving into those bigger units, but it's a syndication deal. But somebody else is going to be responsible for the balance of how that unit utilities work on that deal structure. But as an individual buyer, when you think differently, think like the CEO. If you know you don't want to be responsible for all this stuff, learn how to delegate duties. If you can manage your household, you can manage properties. And another thing I tell people, the reason why you see a CEO is always married. You can see them get divorced. Perlman, name them all. Immediately, they must get remarried, because it shows that you're able to maintain a structure. Shareholders like it.
That's interesting.
Investors love it. There's a reason why you see Diddy, who started in music, doing all this before Jay. And remember, I'm in this world. Become a CEO, become executive of Bad Boy, do all this before Jay. But then Jay got into the business, did Rock Nation, did all this. He was here with him, right? But what happened? Jay got married. He showed structure and balance, became president of Def Jam, Universal Records, doing this. See, he kept going here.
Wow.
Diddy kept hitting that ceiling, but because it's like, you know what? I'm not going to have this single guy running my company. He got a bunch of girlfriends, different lifestyles.
Right.
You know, they don't know. This is just the mindset of how it works amongst $1 million people. And I tell people, there's a difference with you being a millionaire, I did a whole show about how becoming a millionaire is actually being poor now. You can have
Really?
$1 million nightmares and not even realize them. You should be focusing on your $1 billion dreams. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop and let you get to the question because
No,
I'll go running.
it's true that I've been reading a lot and listening to podcasts and stuff about being a millionaire, and it's like you got to have a millionaire mindset, but also you can have $1 million business and have $1 million bills as well, and so then you're not a millionaire. So that's not really the goal. We have to shift what we're saying and our intentions about what we're trying to be. And of course, $1 million is not what it was one day ago. So we definitely have to be thinking about $1 billion dreams. So wow, yeah, you have a really very, very, very interesting story. So and a perspective on things. And so once you started, the other question I wanted to get to is that you educate a lot. Why do you educate? You're making money, you're doing what you got to do, and you're look like you're having fun while you're doing it. And I just wonder what about that? Why do you have such a passion to educate? Not only that, I noticed that you seem to be very measured. You're not everywhere. You're not trying to be, in front of everybody's, part of everybody's thing. You seem like you're very intentional, strategic about what you're doing. So,
Man, I appreciate that. I really do. The reason why I teach is because it's in me. Like, first of all, I love to talk, right?
Okay.
And I love to inform people, and I love to watch people's eyes light up when I felt like I just woke them up. But one thing I learned is that, like, I used to be in the Nation of Islam. I was into that really young, and that really helped my development of speaking in front of people, accepting knowledge and interpreting. The picture is bigger than what you're looking at. The picture is cropped, and it's cropped because there could have been flaws all around it. Try to focus on the outer because they want you to focus on the inner of what you see. Wow. You know how you have a picture, you took one of the best pictures, but somebody ran into the shot. Clouds are coming in, a disaster, water puddle there. But if I crop that picture, you're gonna be like, oh, it was perfect. We have to stop accepting the picture and realize that we were always taught to focus on the picture, be distracted when everything else around you, it's really working against you, right? So once I start getting this knowledge and talking to people, mentors and people with money and even people not with money, my uncles, my great uncles with the South and understanding the story, I knew once I start getting this knowledge, I wanted to tell people. I started telling people once I got the knowledge being in the nation about how, you understand how the world's put together and they don't want us to win as black people and the Israelites. And like, I used to go battle Israelites. The guys got the Israelite robes on and they have the book, read. I used to go to 14th Street in Union Square and come with my knapsack with my books, and they'll see me coming and be like, oh, here come little Farrakhan. And I used to be like, hey, my brothers, let's greet each other. And I used to go at it with them because it was knowledge-based. But then I realized the power of knowledge could be used in a way where you deter people from a right path they were on. Like I tell people, some people are on a path that fits them, and that path works. Like they're going to accept that the world is this way. Always do this, always do that. It might not be according to what you believe in, but both y'all are heading in the right direction. Don't come along and shake their balance and go, what you believe in is wrong. It's like now you're responsible for that person's destination at the end of their trip because you just took them off the path. And I was like, you know what, Storm? That's too much power. That's too much power when you're dealing with religion and faith. Then once, like I said, so I wanted to give people a different way, financial freedom and this and that. And now when I start pumping that information, that was always in me. And I said, now I can give people the option to go financially bring that knowledge into your home. Give that to your children. Start talking about third and fourth generations, how this and that happens. So that passion in me was always there. And what was the last part of that question, though, you asked? And I said, I wanted to address that.
Oh, I said that you're very measured. Was that the part?
Oh, yeah. What it is for me is that I've talked to other people getting into this thing we're doing now, right? With Instagram, YouTube's podcasts. People got thousands of followers.
Mm.
And I would talk to them and go, look, hey, I'm Storm, ASK, always seek knowledge. And,
Mm.
I love what you're doing. I just want to really, try to help educate my people
Mm.
on what level. And I think I have a strategy for people to be able to become investors
Mhm.
out of state, like outside of these expensive markets, and they feel like they can't become investors. And
Mhm.
I think that if people start hearing it more and changing their mindset, people be looking at me like, all right, cool, cool, cool.
Mhm.
But it was that, what you want, what angle,
Yeah.
what's in it for you?
Mm.
And I'm like,
Okay.
there's nothing in it. Or they feel like I want to take this, I'm coming for this shine, I'm coming for
Mm.
this spot. And I'm like, and then I start looking, going, this is like the music industry, Storm. Like it really is. It's
Yeah.
like people got their spot, they got their shine, they got a hit record banging right now, they
They got their
podcast,
crew.
whatever it
Yeah.
is banging. And now they like, yo, you trying to get down with I got a whole crew over here. I got my own Wu-Tang. I got to
Mhm.
put on Old Dirty next. Ghostface got to come out next.
Right.
Like, they got their whole crew. And now you jumping in it, even though your bars might be hot.
Right.
Your logic might be hotter. But you know what? They gotta take care of the crew. So I said, Storm, keep doing you. And guess what? Your message is gonna shine.
Yes.
Eventually, someone's gonna hear you and go, hold up, man. Y'all are tripping. You hear what this young blood over here is talking about?
Right.
And thankfully, that has been happening. And I got with my guy, Ash Cash,
Yes.
which I've known
Shout out
for
to Ash.
quite some time. Yeah, but we didn't know each other on this level.
Mhm.
And, I had the conversation with him, and he seeked some information from me. It's like, yo, what's your play on the real estate and the trust and stuff like that? And he was like, yo, my man, you know what? I don't know what they think about it. I don't know what you ready to do, but let's do it. And I said, all right, bet. He's like, nah, really. I was like, cool, man. Look, whatever. If you ready, you ready. You know how you know how people tell you, this is why I refer to the music industry. It's like people tell you, yo, you next.
Yeah.
You next. And then you walking around, they introduce you to everybody. You never get a contract. Your single never comes out. And everybody like, yo, damn, whatever happened to him? And that's how I felt like. And I said, yo, so when anytime somebody else said, let's rock, it's like, I bet, man, but I'm going to keep on doing my shows. And then he was like, yo, get on the plane, come down here. Let's do it. So
that's good.
100%.
You definitely preaching to me today, because I've been sort of along that same vein, and I love what you said. How be who you are. Keep focused on what you're doing, what your gift is, what your purpose is, and keep walking in that. And then you will see how if your gift is meant for the people, it will be brought to light, and you will be received in the way that you're supposed to be received. So I love that. So I wanted to get into legacy. I know you're very passionate about legacy. And I wanted to know, why is legacy so important to you?
Oh man, it really is. I always say, anytime I start talking about that part, it's another place in my heart that just goes, wow, because we need to really be focused on, it's an individual on taking. So when I say we, I don't want to project it like it's a mandatory, right? Because you have to worry about yourself first before you can put the mask on anyone else. Once you focus on yourself and get yourself together, if we were to say to ourselves, how much money do I need to survive? Like that really has a number. There's not I need 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. Realistically, you don't need that kind of money, right? But is to make that kind of money, which is great. We all should strive. It's now, okay, you're going to leave it for. Now that you've made this 20 million, $10 million that you only need 1 million to live, because you live in your whatever lifestyle that is, 2, 3, 4 million. You got all this money left. The money's still going. What's it for? Did you say to yourself, in the beginning conversation, you wanted to create legacy wealth, and now all of a sudden it turned into self-wealth because all about you? Are you only focusing on the children that you can see, when we know that wealth is lost in the first 2 generations?
Absolutely.
Are you thinking bigger and saying, you know what? I want that Rockefeller. I want that Rothschild. I want that Gucci name. I want that Fendi. Like all these things that we love so much, these are last names of families. You see, that's a family last name.
Right.
Like, when do we say to ourselves, I want that for my legacy? when do we not only look at our children we see and now assume they're going to do the right thing and leave it up to them when you can do it right now yourself? You yourself already said, I only need 2 million to survive. So, okay, I got 3 children. My company is worth 5 million, $10 million. But one thing I learned is you should never say that what you worked for and developed is for your children, right? And I'm going to give an exact detail of this. The reason why that's so important is because we do not take into consideration that a lot of us are sitting here with $1 million life insurance policy, $5 million life insurance policy. If you're already saying you got a $10 million company, but you got $5 million life insurance, or even $1 million life insurance policy, that life insurance policy is for your children. Like, that life insurance policy is for your children. And when people say, Storm, I want to enjoy my money and spend it now, I'm not talking about the money you're making for your company. I'm talking about you setting up a life insurance policy that you know your kids are going to get that money, because if your company folds, then you don't have anything to leave them anyway. So the thought process should to automatically have a life insurance for your kids. And whatever you have from your company, now you start preparing that in the trust for the legacy. Your kids, they really don't need part of your $10 million wealth if you're going to leave them $1 million life insurance policy, or you can leave them a portion of the company, another 2-3 million. But that other 7 million, break that up. Put that in your trust. Have it where your company, either the funds go into an account or the company gets sold. Put that money, break that down. You know my whole structure. You put that in a brokerage, SP 500, that whole structure. Leave that to go on and on and on and on. That can be done. But what we do is we get busy, we get lazy, and we all of a sudden don't believe in our mortality. We automatically go, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. But before you got everything, you was like, yo, I got to get my shit straight, man, because damn, anything can happen to me. Oh, now you got money. Nothing can happen to you now?
Yeah, I hear it all the time. Yeah, people delay all the time. And it just makes it hurts my heart when people come to me after the fact. Like, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about planning. We've been talking about putting time in place. And it's like never done. And this is the problem. This is why our communities are bleeding equity every single day. Things are getting lost. Yeah.
Now, what hit for me with legacy was when I was putting my trust together, my attorney came to me and said, listen, man, you need to really take your primary, your house and put it in a trust and do this and that. Also for the protection aspect. I was like, I bet that's great. So yeah. So I said, outside of me putting that property in a trust, I also navigated like, yo, can I property manage this? Can I do this? Can I make money? It's like my account's like 100%. You can do these things. I said, all right, cool. Now, how do I do this? I heard so much about this trust. How did this legacy gets created?
Right.
So then it was a stormy day.
Of course. I said, of course. a stormy day.
October something. And I said, let me look at somebody trust who created a trust that we always hear about. So I looked up the Rockefeller Trust from 1934. I said, you know what, Storm? Take your time, go through this thing. So I'm going through it. And I'm looking at this thing going, this is insane. It's so simplified. It is technical. But what I mean was when you look it up, they give you like footnotes on what this means. About how you leave the money for children that are not born, how that's explained, how he would put this money in this account, only give this generation this portion, while the rest of it remained invested for the next generation, and they would only get a portion. And then the next, I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? It's right here. I said, Storm, you doing this right here. And once I sat with my trust attorney and had this conversation, they were blown away. But here's the scenario I tell people. We can't assume people that are trust attorneys and accountants have their stuff in order. Just like a barber don't have a haircut and a mechanic don't have his car fixed. You go to them, tell them about your Rockefeller Trust. They're going to go, what? What the hell are you talking about? That don't mean they're not knowledgeable. That just means dealing with either the crowd that they're used to, who never talks about stuff like that, or it's never a thought in the brain to think 5-6 generations down the line. So
and also, like you said, sometimes they're just looking at what's presented and they're not looking outside of the box, like what you said. They're not thinking beyond the limitations that the industry or the field would have us in.
Yep, yep.
Mhm.
So, you could go ahead and hit me with, I know probably if I gave you some stuff for questioning, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that was really good stuff. And what you're saying about the trust and how you can create generational wealth. A lot of people find out. I find that speaking to people, their eyes do light up because a lot of people didn't know that this is a different way for you to actually leave wealth. It's actually a better way other than just leaving a will. So I speak to people all the time. They're like, I think I need a will. I think I need a will. And I'm like, why? Let's look at your assets. Let's put everything together. Like a will is not going to do what you want it to do. You don't get the type of control and the type of design ability that you do with the trust to be able to really think those future generations into existence. Right.
It's the now. See, the will is the now.
Mm-hmm.
The trust is the future.
Wow.
And the thing when I always talk about a will with people and I give them, like, I realize you got to give people tangible things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I tell them, look, James Brown will was held up in probate for 14 years.
Yep. I talked about that too. Yep.
14 years. Praying the probate court a fee to manage this thing here. And his family wasn't able to do anything with those assets.
Yeah. Probate court, attorneys, all types of appraisal fees, bonds, and all that good stuff for years.
So then they go, really, Storm? Really? I'm like, yeah, what you think I'm bullcrapping here? Like, we have to, and then people go, well, I'm glad I'm talking to you because you know about this stuff, right?
Right.
So when people always talk about, well, I get to trust, and what about this? I said, look, there's a thing called a pour over will.
Yes.
So these items get caught in the pour over will that if you don't get a chance to put them in, or you do want to leave heirlooms to people, that's what this is for, which is attached to that. I'm like, look, I paid lots of money to learn this information.
Right.
Anytime I paid money for anything, it's school for me. Mm-hmm. So my attorneys are going to know, like, look, I'm not just paying you so you can go do it. I want to know, and I got questions.
Right.
I want to know, and I want to give that knowledge. I want to share about it. So when people say, yo, what school you went to? You did this? I say, yo, I went to a very expensive school of paying people. I'm just saying, I'm giving it to you to do. I have questions.
I love
and that's
that.
what it is.
I love that. And everybody should be like that in terms of wanting to understand exactly what they're getting. And I love educating people on this too, because they're just like, I didn't know, that your trust has to actually own everything that you want it to be able to control. If your trust doesn't own it, it's for nothing. And so lawyers would have you pay for a trust, create this nice elaborate trust for you, not have you fund it or not put anything in it. And then when the time comes, your family has to go to them and probate because nothing was in the trust. And so
nothing was signed over to the trust.
Exactly.
Nothing. Accounts, life insurance policies, none of that. Funding the trust, it's very key to have it done, not just creating a trust.
Absolutely.
Fund it. Change those accounts. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They get a consultation. I'm like, they have this done this way, that, and this way, and the revocable, irrevocable. And I said, if the main thing that you're worrying about with the revocable and irrevocable, we won't get too deep in that conversation.
No problem.
Right? Just worrying about being able to change who's on it, this and that, then you're not really sure about the people you plan on leaving it to. Like, right. I know if I'm going to leave something to my children, I'm going to leave something to my spouse. I don't need to worry about it being revocable. Right. Irrevocable, this is staying. If I sell it, okay, the funds can stay in. Revocable, right. You can't return to the funds, it stay in. Right. Cool, I'm fine with that. But I'll go get something else. But you need to understand, what are you doing? Like, it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
when I get in that discussion.
It's also having a plan, right? So a lot of times we don't want to plan and put things, make things hard and fast. We want to be fluid with everything. And so you can be fluid with some things, but if the people don't have a vision, they don't have direction, they will perish, right? So you have to actually make a decision. You have to actually, be committed to the thing that you're doing, which I think is what you're speaking to. People don't really want to commit to actually putting something in place. So, Storm, this was such a fruitful conversation. Thank you so much. The last question I really want to ask you is, how do you want to be remembered after all these things that you do? And I know it's a heavy question because so what I do in part of my practice is I have these legacy interviews with people to sort of ask them these deep questions so their families can have their vision, in addition to their legacy. Yeah. So this is usually one of the hardest questions, and it can change.
I got to figure it out. I always think about that.
Yeah.
Because if I think about the trust, then of course I'm thinking about what I want to leave, right? So that kind of helps with the direction of your thought process, having a trust, since you think it's so
Right.
far ahead. My
Mhm.
goal, I like for my great, 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 great grandkids to
Mhm.
look back and thought about us.
Right.
He intentionally did these things back then
Mm.
for us now. Like I want to have a cul-de-sac of townhouses
Mm.
built. And one of my mentors, his thing, what he's doing, he built all these townhouses. He's like, Storm, all these maintenance fees is nothing but rent,
Mhm.
forever rent. He
Mm.
says, I'm gonna build all these townhouses, sell them. He said, think about it. It's like the mob. No matter if
Mm.
they sell them, the next person moved in still gotta pay me.
Mm.
It's not a lease, it's a maintenance fee. I'm
Mm.
like, he's like, yeah. So you can put these stipulations in where the maintenance fee goes up here. This happens here. I'm like, wow. He's like, that's going to be continuously for him,
Mhm.
20, 30, $40,000 his generations will always have. They will
Wow.
always. And I'm like, I want that. I want my grandkids to be able to, people to be able to drive in, my grandkids' family, and see that plaque on them
Mhm.
two pillars and go, that's our family name.
Right.
This is ours. This is what funds this generation's for
Mhm.
as long as it stays in place. Putting the right trustees. And that's
Wow.
key thing that, people need to understand, which is an important conversation.
Mhm.
Having the right trust, having either the law firm, that's the trustee, having these things in order,
Right.
having a letter that you even leave behind, even though the trust speaks for itself, have that personal letter that they can continuously hand down,
Mhm.
written. When they see the compassion of what you started doing 6, 7 generations earlier in that letter and going, he
Keep it
wrote
going.
this. This is what he wants. Give it to the next trustee. Give it to the next one. Give it to him.
Right.
And they're going to go, wow, this was my great great grandfather. He wrote this.
Yeah,
I
that's
know what my
beautiful.
responsibility is, me being a trustee now.
Mhm.
So that's my legacy. I know it's corny
It's not
and
corny.
stuff, but
It's not corny at all. And I think that everyone, my desire is that everyone has, developed this mindset, because that's how, as a people, we continue to progress, right? That's how our, legacy properties, all of Brooklyn is worth like millions of dollars now, right? And who was in all of Brooklyn, right? So that's a bunch of wealth that could have elevated the next generation, that could provide Ivy League educations if that's what you wanted, or could provide, startups for businesses, or monies to buy other property. So these are the things that we're sort of like, I don't want to say fighting for, but that we're sort of trying to build now, could have already been, and that's what,
we
like you.
have an entry. We have an entry now, which I
Mhm.
like to mention.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold your show up and keep you here with me all
Yeah.
day, right?
we're gonna close out. Go ahead.
The entry which I tell people is, real estate is good to get into, but it's not the end plan. You get
Mhm.
into real estate, start investing to make cash flow, to invest in greater things you see. We need
Mhm.
to be open to thinking about the ahead and think about things like the metaverse. Think
Mhm.
about
Right.
investing into these things, because this is where it's going. If
Mhm.
you look at how it's happening in the real estate in the meta, things I talk about,
Mhm.
we're going to have all our isms and everything happening in this space because it's happening. You can't stop this. This train has left the station. What are
Right.
you going to do? We're on the tail end of wealth in real estate. The tail end. Buying a
Mhm.
property like I did for 300,000 and think you're going to hit 2 million will not happen. You can
Again.
buy it for 300,000 and hit 500,
Mhm.
maybe 6. But the reason why I was able to make that jump, because nobody knew about the urban areas. No
Mhm.
Whole Food didn't care about it.
Right.
Amazon wasn't showing that we spend the most money in deliveries. All these brands wasn't moving here. All the people from the suburbs wasn't moving into the ghetto. Now that
Mhm.
they're here, we're exposed. So
Right.
you know what? Get in, get cash flow, but now turn into a savvy investor. Put on your CEO hat. Think about your kids and your grandkids, what they're going to be doing, because they're
Mhm.
not going to want to be real estate investors, what they're going to be
Yeah.
using, what they're going to be doing, and invest in that thing for the future.
Love it.
I'm done.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, watch your show, partake in your offers, things like that?
You can find me on Instagram. I am Storm Leroy.
Mm.
The same on YouTube. I do a show now. I'm going to try to stay committed to doing this on Instagram. It's called Eye of the Storm. I do it on Instagram,
Mhm.
and I do it on Clubhouse from Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock,
Okay.
around 8 to 8:45, 9 o'clock. Sometimes I go 9:15, 9:30 because I talk a lot.
That's a
But for now,
commitment.
that's going
Mhm.
on. I'm gonna try to continue to give as much knowledge away, because I don't know when my now is coming and my
Right.
lights go off. So I want to give it away.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Storm. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate you, sis, 100%. I love what
All right. Thanks.